Hi folks, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. My name is Shannon Bush. I am a project manager with the BCD COG, and I am managing the McClellanville 2020 Comprehensive Plan project along with Catherine Basha, our planning director, and the town staff. So thank you for joining us again here. Just to let you know, we are offering this recording as an alternative to just traditional public workshops that are typically held at Town Hall in an effort to ensure people's safety and continuing to avoid large public gatherings. And we're just offering these materials online for you to be able to view at any time that works for your schedule. So we hope you like this format. Please also be sure to take the community survey. It's also available on the COG's website. Has only an estimated time of about 10 minutes total for completion. Finally, please submit any comments, questions, ideas, suggestions, feedback, etc. related to the comp plan within that same page where you found this PowerPoint video. Look for the ideas or suggestions text, and my name and contact information will be right there for you. So moving along, today we are going to talk about three different things. First, what is a comprehensive plan? The process and timeline of this project. And finally, kind of the meat of this discussion is the existing conditions for McClellanville today. So getting into it first, what is a comprehensive plan? It's a document that identifies and communicates a community's goals. It provides a blueprint for future land use decisions, serves as the basis for land use codes, zoning, subdivisions, those types of regulations. The document itself consists of texts, baseline analytic maps, and other visual data to help convey that information. Ultimately, it's going to be providing guidance for laws, policies, and programs relating to the town's community development. Importantly, it's going to offer implementation strategies and ways to measure success of what's identified as the town's goals, and it's developed through a process that includes a diverse group of community stakeholders, folks like yourself watching this video. So just some brief history on how we got here. In 1924, the South Carolina General Assembly granted local governments the authority to undertake planning and zoning to manage growth and development. Fast forward to 1994, the State Comprehensive Planning Act was passed and required municipalities to form local planning commissions and facilitate a comprehensive planning process every 10 years, which is to include an inventory of existing conditions, which we will be going through in a minute. It has to assess those 9 required elements, provide a statement of needs, goals, and objectives, and offer implementation strategies and timeframes. Those 9 elements are population, economic development, natural resources, cultural resources, community facilities, housing, land use, transportation, and priority investments. The process and timeline for this project is we began in February 2020 with a research phase that includes a review of previous plans, the existing conditions, baseline data research, and also creating mapping and various visuals, charts and graphs to show that information from the research. From now through about December 2020 is the public engagement phase, including public workshops or virtual workshops as we're doing now, open house, the community survey, a webpage. We will identify and create the vision statement. The goals and objectives will be defined in that. The recommendations and strategies will be defined as to how to get there. And finally, we will have public hearings on that draft plan as part of public engagement. Then toward the sort of third phase is document production, which goes from about June through December 2020. The document is developed with the Planning Commission. Drafts of it go to the town staff and Planning Commission for review and feedback along the way. We will hold, again, public hearings on the draft and the final document, and the document will be finalized and later adopted by Town Council. Now we're getting into the Part 3 existing conditions, which is sort of what I mentioned, the meat of this analysis here. Here I'm just showing you a town context map. So the small inset map to the right is showing the town's location in the state context. As you know, the town is on the eastern coast, about halfway up the South Carolina coastline. The town is in Census Tract 50, shown here in the lime green outline. A census tract is just a small, uniquely numbered geographical area used for measuring statistics in the decennial census, and later for providing data analysis like we are doing here in this comp plan. By design, census tracts are fairly homogeneous with respect to characteristics like population, economic status, and living conditions. So they can be a really helpful tool in comparing different areas within the census tract. And you will see some of those comparisons throughout the next upcoming charts and graphs. Zooming in a little bit, zooming further out in context, we are looking just at some of the proximity to surrounding cities. Some of the well-known regions of South Carolina, including Columbia, Charleston, and Myrtle Beach. And we just have a quick little table here displaying the approximate drive times to each of those cities for further context. Getting into the population element, that is the first of those 9 required elements. From 2013 to 2017, McClellanville's population has slowly increased from an estimated 434 in the 2013 American Community Survey's 5-year estimates, which I will just call ACS hereafter, to an estimated 478 in the 2017 ACS. Females have actually accounted for the most of that increase, about 90 females compared to about 35 males. This increase represents an overall 10% population increase in that time. The town's population accounts for about 9% of the overall population of the Census Tract 50 in South Carolina, with a total exceeding 5,000 in that census tract. In your opinion, is a 2% annual increase in population sort of a comfortable level of growth for McClellanville? Here we illustrate the town's population by age brackets in 2013 and 17. Data suggests the town has an aging population based on the overall increases in age brackets beginning from about 35 through 65 plus years. There's a noticeable decrease in the number of children in town under 15 by 2017. The median age in the town is 50.8 years, comparable to the rest of the census tract, but notably higher than some of the compared other geographies here. How might the town's trend toward an aging population impact today's planning decisions in, for example, housing and community facilities? What might we want to be thinking about knowing that we have an aging population here in town? As shown in this chart, females seem to outweigh males in the town's gender representation. And it's also worth noting that McClellanville is a very homogeneous population, being about 95% white, about 5% African American, and less than 1% of any other racial groups are identified living in the town as of 2017. Here we're showing the Charleston County overall population density. You can see that comparatively, McClellanville does not have a very high population density. Moving on to the housing element of the comprehensive plan required elements. This chart reflects the year structures were built as a proportion of the town's total housing inventory in that time, being 2013 and 2017. Over that time period, there's been a decrease in homes built from 70 to 79 and from the 1990 to 2000 brackets. There was, however, a notable uptick of units in the 80s in that same time period. The majority of housing units in the town are owner occupied at nearly 90%, which is quite high. The town also has a higher vacancy rate in units compared to other regions, which may be just due to the high number of secondary homes in town. Median home values have generally been increasing, though there is a notable drop from 2014's median value of $323,000 to 2017's median value of $293,000. And here we have another chart displaying the range of home values in town, most falling between $300,000 to $500,000. 98% of housing units in McClellanville are single detached units. The remaining are duplexes or manufactured homes. So a big part of the housing discussion for any community is affordability. In this context, affordability is typically defined as equaling less than 30% or 30% or less of a household's monthly income. McClellanville's residents are fairly similar in housing affordability compared to other regions. When broken down by household type, we see that a total of 53 owner-occupied households are cost burden, meaning they're paying more than 30% or more on housing, while 11 total renter-occupied households are cost burden. It's still a very high number, especially considering that's about 50% of all renters in town. And just a few stats for you. Median rent is $1,200 a month. Median home value, that $293,400. About 32% of McClellanville's households spend 30% or more on monthly income of housing costs. And of those, the majority are actually spending 35% or more on housing costs. So that's a pretty substantial cost burden. Here we're just showing a couple of typical housing images in town. Homes that are on Oak Street, a bungalow on Oak Street, a new smaller home, the Ferrick subdivision, and historic homes on Morrison Street and Court. Moving on to the economic development or economics required element here. This map is showing residents' work destination and the job density in those destinations. So the highest number of workers are employed in and commuting to Mount Pleasant, followed by the city of Charleston, city of North Charleston, and then some smaller numbers of residents are also working in Goose Creek, Columbia, Greenville, Greer, Awendaw, and IOP. At about 56%, the majority of residents are employed, McClellanville residents are employed in management, business, science, and arts occupations, with another large percentage of 43% in sales and office occupations. Since 2010, the majority of workers commute to work in their own vehicle, but there's been a substantial increase since 2013. There's also been a substantial increase in people working from home at nearly 25% in 2017. Approximately 56% of the town's population aged 16 to 64 are employed, just 1.5% unemployed, while 43% are not actively in the labor force. When viewed by age, the typical working population has generally high labor force rates in those brackets. Interestingly, those aged 25 to 29 have noticeably lower rate of labor force participation. That could be correlated with just young families raising children when they are kind of in that age bracket. Poverty is relatively uncommon or even rare in McClellanville compared to other geographies shown here. However, about 4% of the population was living below the poverty level in 2017. So you see here the chart on the left, the pie chart is showing that about 96% of the population is above the poverty level, while 4% or 18 people were actually below the poverty level. And then we've broken down that 4% into a little bit further numbers of age brackets here. None of those people were, worth noting, were below the age of 18. And that is slightly up from the 2013 estimates. The annual household income from 2013 to 17 by brackets here shows increases in several income ranges, most noticeably in the 100,000 plus bracket. A few decreases in income brackets in that time as well. Median household income in 2017 was $65,938, down about $12,000 from the 2013 estimates. That could be correlated with the town's aging population, more retirees on fixed incomes, or fixed or lowered incomes. And then as a comparison, the town has notably higher median income than surrounding geography, as you can see here in this chart. The town has a very high graduation rate for high schoolers at 98%, as well as bachelor's degree holders at 51%, quite a bit higher than the other geographies we're showing here. Educational attainment levels are further broken down by the various degree types. You can see, again, the bachelor's and even graduate professional degree holders are quite high. Moving on to the community facilities element. Here we have a map showing some important public amenities, or also known as community facilities in town, including the boat landing and dock, Charleston County Public Services Building, some public schools, town hall, the seasonal farmers market location, the town park, and the Elizabeth Dawson Memorial Park. Do you think we've missed any important public amenities? If so, please let us know by emailing in your comments. We can get those included on this map. And here we just have some images of those same items just discussed in the map. And the cultural resources element here, variety of photos showing here the Arts Council, the Lookout Tower, the Deerhead Oak, the Baker Street Trees, Silver Hill Plantation, the Village Museum, and a few places of worship. Similarly, we have this map showing most of those same locations here. Natural resources. Variety of photos here showing the Jeremy Creek looking toward the wildlife refuge, looking southward, and some various images at sunset. Also have the Broadmarsh subdivision from Kit Hall and some photos of the working waterfront. So the entire town lies within DHEC's Office of Coastal Resource Management's critical area, which is defined as a coastal waters, tidelands, beaches, and beach dune systems. Habitat for several threatened and endangered plant and animal species exists either in or adjacent to the town limits. It includes yellow fringeless orchid, eastern wood rat, and one-flowered broom rape. The town's also bordered by the Francis Marion National Forest to the west and Cape Romaine National Wildlife Refuge to the south. Francis Marion Forest totals 259,000 acres. It is home to numerous saltwater and freshwater aquatic and terrestrial species. Cape Romaine is home to over 293 species of birds, 24 types of reptiles, 12 varieties of amphibians, and over 36 species of mammals. So it's a pretty special place with a lot of wildlife worth protecting. Here we're showing the wetlands and floodplains. Much of the town's culture and sort of sense of place is derived from its proximity to the ocean and the connected water bodies, which includes lakes, the creek and inlets, and a variety of wetland types. Also worth noting here, the floodplain area, which we can see the entire town is enveloped in this 100-year floodplain. The town is comprised of a variety of sands and loamy soil types. Just generally speaking, these soils tend to be fast draining, they have a high frequency of flooding, they tend to be flat without any kind of slope, and also tend to not be great for most agricultural types. Moving on to the land use element here. First, we're just going to show you a zoning map of today's zoning in town. Worth noting is the large historic district to the shown in the blue hatching. You can see the pink village commercial area and also the highway commercial district area. The vast majority of the town is residential though. You see that same kind of thing here with this land use map. Note that this is based on county assessors data, so this is just how each parcel is documented for tax assessment purposes, but largely kind of mimics the zoning map. Most of this land is residential. You can also note the large agricultural areas as well as the commercial areas. Here we're just showing a couple of images of the village commercial area and the highway commercial areas. We can see the Graham Farm Road, the planned development nursery area, and some of the village commercial businesses. Moving on to one of the next elements, we have resilience here. This is a new comprehensive plan element that we've added to this project, but it's not required under the state's comp plan regulations. So you may have noticed it wasn't earlier listed in those 9 required elements. We've added resilience to this comp plan due to the town's geographic location and its recent history with hurricanes and flooding. So what is coastal resilience? According to NOAA, it's the ability of a community to bounce back after hazardous natural disasters or events, rather than simply reacting to the impacts. I'd also add that it relates to a community's ability to consider these likely impacts, plan for ways to minimize damage, and adapt to the circumstances before they actually happen. Why should this be included in this comp plan? Well, again, we think that this is something that can be built into a region's planning, and that can help to better minimize and manage natural disaster-related impacts. This graph shows various federal sea level rise predictions from 2015. The City of Charleston sea level rise strategy uses a 1.5-foot increase for short-term, less vulnerable investments, such as parking lot, and 2.5-foot increase for critical longer-term investments. That would be things like emergency routes and public buildings. So for purposes of this resilience element and the related sea level rise analysis, we're using the average of those two, a 2-foot sea level rise scenario, to show you what impacts might look like in town. But first, we're just going to show you the variation of how those 1, 2, and 3-foot scenarios look. So here on the town map, we are showing you the 1-foot sea level rise scenario. That is that kind of brighter blue. Next, we're showing you the 2-foot sea level rise scenario. And now here is the 3-foot sea level rise scenario in the darker blue, which is encroaching quite a bit further into town. How do you think the town should incorporate future sea level rise predictions into land use planning and or the 2020 comp plan? So here we are going to show you this analysis using that 2-foot average sea level rise scenario. Here we have just first a base map of, again, just the land use map in town. Now I've kind of lightened that a little bit and shown this kind of blue squiggly line. This is now showing you the parcels that would be impacted by 2 feet of sea level rise, which is predicted to be the situation by 2065. This brighter blue now, or lighter blue, is showing you and highlighting parcels that would be 50% covered by 2 feet of sea level rise. And here we have the various community facilities and cultural historic resources that may be impacted, just showing you those on the map to get a sense of what exactly would suffer from these impacts. It's worth noting that approximately 200 acres of the historic district would be impacted by 2 feet of sea level rise. And some of the impacted facilities would likely include Town Hall, the boat lock or boat landing or dock, Lookout Tower, Silver Hill Plantation, Elizabeth Dawson Memorial Park, Creek School, and a few churches. Single-family residential lots would be the most impacted land use type in town under that 2-foot sea level rise scenario. 24% of all land parcels in the town would be affected by that predicted 2-foot rise by 2065. About 52 of these parcels will lose more than half of their current land area. How might we utilize this information to protect ourselves today and plan for tomorrow? We'd like to hear from you, so please submit comments. Moving on to the transportation element. Here we're showing the current bike and pedestrian facilities that exist in town, including the East Coast Greenway, the South Carolina statewide bike tour route, the Tri-County Link route, sidewalks, and of course the roadways. Traffic counts in 2010 are shown in black here and 2019 in blue at various meters around town. Note that the counts to the north of town have decreased, maybe due to the closing of Lincoln High School. The identification of priority investments, which can be particular public projects, neighborhoods, infrastructure, et cetera, evolves somewhat organically throughout the planning process. These can be identified by feedback received in the community surveys, through casual conversations with the public about the project, from ideas and suggestions submitted directly to us, any of those kinds of things. So again, we really encourage you to take that survey and to contact us whichever way you would prefer, or folks at Town Hall to let them know what you think of this project and what you think we should be focusing on for priority investments. What do you think the town should prioritize and invest in over the next 10 to 20 years? Think along the lines of public goods, amenities and services. What can make the town better, more inclusive, safer, et cetera? And other elements selected by the community. This essentially just allows for us to identify any other big particular item that might need to be included here. And finally, just as the sort of closing slide here, just have a couple of last questions, sort of food for thought for you. We are receiving and hope to receive any comments, questions, ideas, suggestions, feedback of any sort about this project from you. You can submit those to us on the town or the COGS website. Who's listening? That's me, Shannon Bush. I am the project manager for this project, and you can contact me directly with my office phone or email shown right there at the bottom. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you.